the Jewish students had to form their own fraternities because they weren't invited into the fraternity. But it was never expressed that way. People who lived in Bethlehem went to Lehigh weren't invited in fraternities because they were townies. So there are unwritten ways that kept the people in line. And those that might have been most out of line, they stayed in line for fear because they were not discriminating against, they were beaten, physically beaten. So that for the evolution of time, to hear these people, and I've heard some very, very intelligent people speak here, and I'm quite impressed. I was very much impressed by the comments because they really got to me because they spoke from their heart and they were able to say what people back then couldn't say, which is really a very profound reflection upon how our democracy has grown. And I think to continue that growth of a democracy it's a no-brainer. This ordinance has to be passed to give these people recourse if they find they're being violated against, which people then didn't have. Now, to generate love in a community is also no brainer. You're not going to have it. Watch the kids in grade school. If you want to see love, none love being practiced, bullying is up. So that's pie in the sky. Forget it. You're not going to have it. So again, I'm really impressed with the people behind me who spoke this evening and the last 2 weeks ago because they spoke from the heart. They spoke in an intelligent fashion. I have great support for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would I be able to make a second point?
No,
That's
sorry.
not-
No, the lady in the back.
Hello, my name is Damaris Oberman, and I live at 902 Bridge Street in Bethlehem. I've lived in Bethlehem for 21 years. I have 4 children. I was late because I had to have my 3-year-old watched out in the hallway. My friend relieved me. And I'm here to say that violence is wrong, discrimination is wrong. We have laws in place against violence, and the only thing that I fear is that we're here in this great country because of our rights, many rights, this freedom of speech, which we are using tonight, and the freedom of religion, and many freedoms, freedom of press. This is why I believe we are a great country. We have these great freedoms, and our founding fathers believed in God and believed that God is a God of freedom. But when the government, I believe, steps in to say, well, this is what you can do and this is what you cannot do, I believe you're encroaching upon that freedom. There are laws in place against bullying and violence and all of that kind of thing. But when you say that the churches are exempt, but any entity affiliated to the church are not, that would be a Christian school or a Christian daycare, they have the same beliefs. Let us uphold all these beliefs and all these rights and all these, the beautiful country that we have this freedom here. When the government steps in to say, this is what you can do, you cannot do, this is what you cannot do, then I believe you are encroaching upon our freedom. The reason why our forefathers came here is to separate church and state. Because where they came from, the church told them to do everything. Now I think the opposite is happening. I think it's flipped. And now the government's coming in and telling people who believe a certain way, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. So I believe that there has to be a balance, and I am a Christian, but I believe name Christian over the years has changed, like the name gentleman. For hundreds of years ago, it meant a man with landed property. You had land, you were a landed person with property. And now it means a polite man who opens doors for you and pulls out the chair, for you to sit down. So it has changed over the years. In Christianity, there are laws. That's why when the Pilgrims came over, the religion, you had laws. There were ways you believed and ways you didn't believe. It's like any kind of organization. You have certain laws, certain things that you can and cannot do. So when you come and say, no, that's not right, then I feel you're discriminating there. So we just have to somehow get this straight that no, discrimination is wrong. That is wrong. But also that we maintain all rights for all people. And I thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you. Gentleman over there. Anyone else in the center section?
My name is Don Cohn. I live in Macungie, Pennsylvania. But I represent all those members of PFLAG, parents, families, and friends who live, work, and anything else in the city of Bethlehem. I've heard a lot about religion, what the scriptures say, so let me briefly say, there's a whole lot of different religions. And there's a whole lot of people who read scriptures and interpret it. And I think every one of those religions has a different interpretation. There are many major religions that support gay and lesbian activities. There are some who discriminate and who feel that it's wrong. I don't think it's Bethlehem City Council to decide which of those religions gets put here and which one gets put there. As far as morality, I have a simple thing about discrimination. If you find a group that's being discriminated against, add them to your protected class. The idea isn't to rights. The idea is, and you've heard it from people, and we can cite cases where people get discriminated against, it hurts, they get blamed, they get discriminated. We're not talking about not having rights, we're talking about actual discrimination. And let me say that the white, male, Christian is of the majority, and they're not discriminated against, okay? They're the ones in power. Now, that said, let's look at Bethlehem. Let's look at the big picture. Bethlehem isn't just an island in the middle of Pennsylvania. It's a destination. It's a place where people work. It's where people shop. It also sits smack dab between Allentown and Easton. Like it or not, years ago Allentown passed the same law without the exemptions, and Easton passed it also. They both just passed domestic partner benefits for city employees. Bethlehem, you're a little behind the times, and people are watching. And on the national level, they're watching. On the state level, they're watching. It's almost as if you put down Bethlehem, Christmas City. You can discriminate in our town, or come to Music Fest. Most of you are welcome, all right? I don't think that's the image you want to have. Let's take it a little closer. I think the news media have reported that 50% of the population is Christian. The number that we usually use is 10% of the population is gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. That translates into about 10% of those Catholics are gay and lesbian. Okay? So now we have, who are we discriminating? By the way, the idea that says, I've got my rights, and you can't discriminate against me for my religion or but I'm going to discriminate against somebody else, doesn't work. Again, if you got somebody who's being discriminated against, stop it. Now, let's take those 10%. Every one of those 10% has a mother and father, an aunt and an uncle, a couple grandparents, a few brothers and sisters, a few friends. That translates into maybe 30, 40, 50%. Somebody said, I know who you are, I got your names, and we'll vote. If 30 or 40% of, by the way, maybe those parents aren't supportive of their children. But when they go into the voting booth, somebody said, we're going to keep your names and vote. Do you think those 30 or 40 people or percent are going to vote for someone who denied their children rights and let them be discriminated against? It's your bet. You decide. I think that this needs to be passed in a way that's similar to all the others. The exemptions need to be correct. If they're not similar to the other cities in Pennsylvania, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pomeroy.
Dixon Diggin White, 529 Ontario Street, Bethlehem. I've lived here for 60 years. I spent 8 years in Syracuse, freezing my toes off in the winter time, and was happy to return to the sunny South. I'm out of patience this evening, so I hope you'll pardon me. I've been reading a history of Bethlehem that was published by the Chamber of Commerce about 30-some years ago. I'm pretty appalled at some of the rewriting of Bethlehem history that I've been hearing tonight. So let me give you a little different version of mine. The first settlers here came escaping religious discrimination. They were also escaping Prussian militarism. At first, only Moravians were allowed to live in Bethlehem. There was no personal property. Everything was communally owned. So you might say that this city was founded by draft-dodging commie pingos. Historic Bethlehem doesn't tell you that on their Christmas tour. Let's talk about the bathroom issue. I spent a number of years as an organizer on the ERA campaign, so I heard about the bathroom issue a lot. I gotta ask, those who are concerned about this, do you have separate bathrooms in your home for men and women and boys and girls? Or do you simply teach people to close the door and to knock before they go in? Also, I can guarantee you that as Phyllis Schlafly flew around the country spreading hatred, she used unisex bathrooms on airplanes. What's the big deal? I've also heard tonight I've heard discrimination clothed in the garments of alleged morality. And the speaker before me spoke much more politely about the need to recognize that there are in fact many religions in the city of Bethlehem. There are also agnostics. There are people who don't believe in God, and they should all have the same rights and not be discriminated against. I grew up in the Catholic school system in Bethlehem, and I well remember thinking that something was wrong when I kept hearing that the world was divided into Catholics and non-Catholics. I mean, as an 8-year-old, I knew that was wrong. This is not my brand of Christianity, one that I care to endorse. I remember a couple of years ago when the folks from Wichita were here, picketing Beth's church, among others. I was a member at Trinity Bethlehem, and they came to picket us too, and we met them out front. They were spewing hatred, and they were really upset with us because we just smiled and were pleasant, and we offered them juice and cookies because Trinity has a habit of expressing hospitality to everyone. They were furious, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that. In any case, what I'm hearing is people who are actually saying, well, you can't legislate love. No, but they really want to legislate hate. And I just can't, I don't have any tolerance for that. I've run out of it. I'm really tired of people calling themselves Christian and acting as though they are somehow morally superior. This is not entirely a Christian community, thank goodness. But I want to leave you with this. You know that you've created God in your own image when you find that your God hates the same people you hate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pungratz?
My name is Mary Pongratz. I live at 321 West 4th Street. I found it necessary to bring with me something from the Constitution because some people here evidently are not familiar with the amendments to the Constitution, better known as the Bill of Rights. The first one is freedom of religion, press, speech, assembly, and petition. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. I have heard so many things tonight about religious exemptions. It would seem to me most unseemly for any member of the clergy of any faith, of any religious background, to say that there should be tightening of religious exemptions. Shall we close all the parochial schools? Shall we close all the Catholic hospitals, the Episcopal hospitals? Do you know what you are saying when you ask for tightening of religious exemptions? I hear nothing more here than an attack on the Catholic Church, and I bitterly resent that. A truly religious person never attacked another religion. You are denying them their freedom under the Bill of Rights to exercise whatever religion they so desire, or no religion if that is your desire. That upsets me no end. Now, not only do we have an Amendment 1 about religion, we have an Amendment 9, other rights retained by the people. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. We live in a country that gives us freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom to express yourself. There's nothing in the Constitution that says there shall be religious exemptions. Where did that come from? I'd like an answer because it goes to the core of my heart that we have people who are seeking an anti-discrimination law discriminating against religion. That to me is appalling. Not only appalling, it is against the Constitution of this great country in which you and I have the good luck to live. The only way there will be no discrimination in this world is if we treat each other as we would like to be treated. And I certainly would like to be treated as a member of a faith that has spent thousands and millions of dollars educating children, healing the sick, housing the elderly, and doing a great many other good things. So when I have to sit here for 2 hours and listen to the denigration of religion, it really upsets me. And if it doesn't upset you, I'm going to wonder whether you are truly against anti-discrimination, or are you for discrimination? Just what do you stand for? Furthermore, I applaud counsel for the mental acuity to decide to think a little bit more on this amendment. It is not just a piece of paper and a collection of words. It is an important document that needs to be properly studied, properly worded, so that the meaning that you intended to have can be readily, how can I say, gathered by those who read it. What you write on paper you cannot take back. I want this ordinance to be the best that it can possibly be. But the only solution to discrimination in this world is for every one of us to be the best person we can be and treat each other as you would treat yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lee? Then a lady in the room.
Good evening. My name is Esther Lee, 627 Cherokee Street. I'm a native of Bethlehem, and everybody's spewing out how many years they've been around. I've been around Bethlehem 77 years. I'm the current president of the Bethlehem NAACP. I have served as the chairwoman for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Advisory Council to Northampton County for over 25 years. And the city of Bethlehem didn't take the time to participate in that. Now, you know, there have been complaints ongoing for all that time, and we've gone to Harrisburg. Tonight, I've heard that you want to postpone the adoption of this Human Relations Commission in Bethlehem. I think you're wrong. I do believe that, you know, we'll never get it right. And we always have the language of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission to fall back on. Our language may never be perfect. You know, we talk about those who've been discriminated against. I can tell you from the early 1900s through the end of the 50s, the numbers of Negroes, and I call us Negroes, that had to leave Bethlehem because of being discriminated against. There were no jobs to be had simply because they were of color. Now, you know, there's nothing new about this thing. You know, the graves, there's discrimination in the graveyards. You know, we have to follow it completely down. You know, the people that have come out to ensure that their rights are taken care of, I don't see where there's a problem. When we talk about Christians, religion, and what's part of the state, those things that are of God are God's. And if anybody does anything that's not in accordance with the religious principles, that's a judgment day issue. And you go before the just bar God. He'll make the determination who's right and wrong. But for council tonight, what I'd have to ask, you know, you said you want to postpone this meeting for 2 weeks. The problems, the questions that you have, you know, how will you answer them if we aren't there to help you? So who's going to help, you know, with the questions that you have to bring this thing to perfection? You know, Mary says she wants you to answer it. I'd like an answer to that, if you can, as you know, resume yourselves. This Human Relations Commission is needed in Bethlehem. Discrimination is riding high today, just as it was years ago. And not only for Negroes or African Americans, but for all people. We need to look at things just as they are. I ran for political office 6 times, and we'll never know what the reason was that I didn't win. We can only suspect the fact that of color was just not to be. But councilmen, women, please, in your deliberations, try not to make things perfect, because I don't think it's in you. I think you need to just review the document. It sounds kind of redundant, but I'm willing to live with what you have there. The religious issue, church and state, separate it, let it be. Just do exactly what we can to fulfill, which will help us to fight the discrimination as it currently exists in Bethlehem. Please do that. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. I didn't intend to speak, but I can't sit there and allow you to think that Bethlehem is clean. It's not.
Thank you. The lady.
My name is Allison Diane Hom. I didn't intend to speak tonight either, but after hearing some of the things that were said, I really wanted to address them. I live in Allentown, but my church is located in Bethlehem, and one of my employers is located in Bethlehem, so this would affect me. And I do pay taxes through my employment that go towards Bethlehem. A couple of things that were raised. They were talking about doctors being asked to perform surgeries. That is absolutely untrue. You wouldn't ask a dentist to do an ear surgery. The only person performing a gender reassignment surgery is someone who chose to learn how to do that extremely complicated procedure. Many doctors who perform those type of surgeries are denied the ability to use hospital facilities. It's not something that's easily found. There's only a few in the country that actually perform them. So that is not a concern whatsoever. A gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender person getting married looking to hire a photographer wants their photographer to take flattering pictures, someone who's comfortable with their family. They're not going to ask someone who's homophobic to work for them. Those are misguided concerns. Bathrooms, the people at risk are much more often the transgender person. As was stated, McDonald's in Baltimore, someone was horribly beaten. It was filmed. Employees sat idly by and filmed it and put it on YouTube. That is much more the case of what happens for bathrooms. Somebody who has chosen to live in the gender they feel they are goes through years of therapy, years of struggling with their issues, of who they are and accepting who they are. It is not a light decision that they enter into, and they most often choose and prefer a gender-neutral bathroom that they can lock the door so they feel safe. They are not one day deciding to put on a dress so they can be a predator. They are seeking their own safety for a simple public accommodation of relieving bodily fluids. When it comes to religious freedom, yes, I believe in it strongly, I support it. I want this council to support it as well. But religious freedom means there are many religions, not one. People are saying their church is being discriminated against. Nobody's saying you can't hire a Catholic. Nobody's saying Catholic churches are no longer allowed to have buildings here. They are saying you can have extra privileges beyond what everyone else has to follow. But we can only go so far in giving you all of those extra privileges. The debate comes to, yes, your right to express yourself goes to before you hit somebody else in the face. When you are hurting someone else, that is when you are asked to draw the line. And when your religion goes further than the preaching and the living of your religion, and it is causing other people a denial of a place to live, a place to work, a place to shop, a place to just exist, that is when it's gone a little bit too far. Lastly, one of the other things someone said that this is a place where people can speak without fear. You're wrong again. I know many people who are scared, terrified of speaking publicly. And that is because they do not have these protections. I know people are even scared to write a letter or an email because then if they are in support of someone's rights, someone might assume something about them and then they might get fired. They might be kicked out of their home. And this is a present day reality and it happens every day and it should not be the case. Actually, there's one more quick thing. With the cost, it is minimal. I'm a Human Relations Commissioner for the city. I have been one for 10 years, and I have never incurred an expense trying a case. Thank you.
Thank you. Right here.
I'm Nadine Anderson. I live in Palmer Township. I had some very good memories associated with Bethlehem.